and other forums they will convene from the end of June till the 23rd of July. Comments from branches and provinces will be discussed at the policy conference, which Andrisa said at the end of July of this year. Each subcommittee will engage with their respective sectors, academia, think tanks, over the ensuing period. In addition, the Department of Information and Publicity will facilitate interactions between the relevant ANC subcommittees and the media starting this coming week. All these discussion documents will be made available to our organization structures, as I've said, the media yourselves, and the general public on the ANC website as a special edition of Mahabul, soon as I finish this press conference. Global environment, objective landscape. If we all thought 2020 was a momentous year, with the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus, 2022 appears equally so. The global public health crisis triggered by COVID-19 quickly turned into the largest global economic crisis in more than a century, resulting in major setbacks to growth, increased poverty rates, and widened inequality. The economic slowdown that was equivalent to many recessions induced by COVID-19 is now coupled by the rise in inflation, increases in energy, food, fertilizer, amongst others. There's also been a tightening of interest rates to counter rising inflation rates, and this is a blow to real incomes of people and to consumer spending. We are especially concerned about rising food prices given its disproportionate impact on the poor. Only last week, England Central Bank Governor Andrew Bailey warned that the catastrophic food prices could have a disastrous impact on the world's poor for a long time. This week, the United Nations Secretary General cautioned that a potential global food crisis could last years if it goes unchecked, as the World Bank announced an additional $12 billion in funding to mitigate its devastating impact. Professor Carmen Reinhardt, the chief economist of the World Bank, says in his 2022 World Development Report, it's time to prioritize early, tailored action to support a healthy financial system that can provide credit growth needed to fuel recovery. If we don't, it is the most vulnerable that will be hit the hardest. The outbreak of hostilities between Ukraine and Russia has made the world more crisis-prone and unpredictable. This event is as momentous as the dissolution of the Eastern Bloc that signified the end of the Cold War. This ushered in the era of globalization and growth prospects for the globe. A new Cold War appears in the offing and will reshape the global political and economic environment for the foreseeable future. In the intervening period, the world has witnessed events which have altered global affairs drastically, from the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the rise of neoliberalism, globalization, predicated on an international liberal world order, to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus and various wars over the years. The much trumpeted globalization process has been weakened by the effects of increased levels of inequality, the rise of nationalism, the hollowing out of democracy, trade conflicts, climate change-induced disasters, as we've seen in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Northwest and Eastern Cape, the coronavirus pandemic, and now the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The world has also witnessed the rise of Asia in general and China in particular, with its large populous country becoming the center of gravity, with economic activity shifting from west to east, thereby challenging the dominance of the US-EU global dominance. Its economic development is regarded as unprecedented in modern times, and hundreds of millions of Chinese have been lifted out of poverty in record time. The pivot to the east of the United States of America was in the main to prevent the rise of the rival to its predominant global superpower position. This has been stated position of the US from the 1990s onwards with the release of its revised 1992 national security paradigm. On the BRICS front, things are evolving. What will be the role of BRICS now, and what will our South Africa's position gonna be? Africa in general has also witnessed increasing instability and conflict over the last period. It also needs to diversify its economies to lessen its dependence on commodities that are also prone to cyclical movements and re-industrialize simultaneously. All these developments play themselves out against the backdrop of a weakened African Union and coup d'etats in 2021, mainly in West Africa, ongoing tensions in Libya, in Chad, Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Sudan, and Ethiopia, all rooted principally in a challenge to manage diversity. The Sahel region, Nigeria, Somalia, Mozambique, experienced conflict flowing from the jihadist actions. These are worrying trends that require urgent attention and resolution. Domestic environment. The situation here at home has been equally challenging following the onset of COVID-19 in 2020, both as a subjective and objective level. Despite all these significant gains, the ANC is faced with a number of critical challenges which have led to the erosion of our electoral support and confidence in the ANC as a leader of society. These include low economic growth and perilous fiscal situation, unacceptable high levels of inequality, unemployment, and poverty, a lack of planning, coordination, implementation, and accountability for our work in government to achieve our policy goals, failure to respect the values of our organization, serving the community and addressing their concerns is subordinated to factional interests. Violent protests, as well as assassinations that are fueled by rival factions, some of which are beginning to be institutionalized. Lack of accountability, accessibility, and transparency by ANC employees, including poor communication with our communities, lack of transparency, weak or ineffective ward committees, declining service delivery, and poor municipal financial management. Declining support for the ANC NEC in elections across all spheres of our government. The July 2021 unrest, mainly in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Organizational renewal. Organizational renewal of the ANC is pivotal for the future of the ANC and our country. The 54th ANC National Conference resolved that organizational renewal, therefore, is an absolute and urgent priority, and may go as far as to say to the survival of our great movement. Moving from being a liberation movement to moving into the seats of power of government has attracted all kinds of careerists, many who are there for their own selfish interests and are in ANC name only. Being in government has come with many negative elements, ranging from gatekeeping, influence of money politics and in elections, swelling of ranks by careerists and opportunists, putting the interests of individuals ahead of the organization and our society. Growing levels of malfeasance and corruption, poor service delivery, distant, out of touch, inward-looking ANC unable to be an effective agent of change and connect with our communities, decreasing levels of trust and credibility in the ANC. All these factors and unsavory elements resulted in the ANC losing support, including in the most recent November 2021 local government elections, dipping us below 50% in a number of metros and municipalities. This is a huge warning signal for the coming 2024 national elections. We have also introduced a step-aside clause and continue to strengthen these measures. We will continue to ensure the behavior of our members and leadership is ethical and unsavory elements are removed from our ranks. The ANC is totally committed to its renewal, re-engineering, and revitalization so that it can remain true to its principles and objectives. Legislature and government. Despite what I've just said right now, the ANC has achieved substantial improvement in state transformation since 1994, with the establishment of strong democratic electoral system, regular elections, and the ongoing transformation of the state into a people-centered organ. Significant progress has been made in achieving our developmental goals, considering that the Millennium Development Goal targeted to halve by 2015 the proportion of population without sustainable access to basic services, an accomplishment that our country, South Africa, managed to attain by 2011, 4 years ahead of the global target. Economic transformation. The ANC's strategic approach to economic transformation is guided by the Freedom Charter's injunction that the people shall share in the country's wealth. After several years of low growth, the ANC intends building on the economic reconstruction and recovery plan and implementing the new creative disruptive policy frameworks which will move the economy onto a higher, more inclusive growth path designed to lift investment and employment creation decisively and in a sustainable manner. The new policy frameworks must be underpinned by a comprehensive social compact of government, business, labor, and civil society, as the President indicated in the State of the Nation address. As the ANC, we are aware that a precondition, an ethical and capable state with broad support is absolutely essential for this program to succeed. The aims will be achieved by focusing, amongst others, on structural reforms of network industries, including electricity, telecoms, water, rail, and road infrastructure, strengthening our industrial policy interventions, microeconomic stability, closer coordination between government and our social partners, including through a sustained and deepening process of social compacting, expanded trade with other countries on the African continent and the rest of the world. Social transformation. This section covers a wide range of issues from social cohesion, nation building, safety of women and children, eradication of substance abuse and gangsterism, promotion of sports, arts and culture, and the empowerment of vulnerable groups. The COVID-19 social relief of distress of 350 Rand per month to adults aged between 18 and 59 has been delivered to those with no income from May 2020 and April 2021. It reached 6 million new individuals who had no access to a grant in a short space of time. This includes the top up of existing grants such as caregiver social relief of distress. Concern has also been raised and expressed about the decline of our research and development over the years. This is the case in business investment and inadequate investment by government and our state-owned enterprises. New innovations and inventions of new technologies have to be more vigorously promoted. Good progress is being made in the implementation of policies and programs towards achieving good quality teaching and learning outcomes. This includes, amongst others, the induction program for newly qualified teachers on the professional teaching standards programs, on the establishment and strengthening of professional learning communities, and the induction of principals. Good progress is also being made in the implementation of the presidential program on ICT in schools through Operation Pakisa. We are also concerned, however, about the continued vandalization of schools. Progress being made in the creation of employment opportunities for the youth that are neither in employment nor in education and training. COVID-19 has shown up a number of deficiencies in our healthcare system. Steps have been undertaken to address the management of the healthcare system and other challenges. 2 days ago, Parliament's Health Portfolio Committee voted in favor of a motion of the disallowability of the National Health Insurance Bill. This represents the first important building block for the vision of universal health coverage. After a slow start, our COVID-19 vaccine program made excellent progress as we continue to counter this pandemic. We have administered at least 35 million doses to date, over 40% of our total population and about 70% in the over 60 age bracket. We are one of the few countries on the continent that identify strains of COVID-19 and provide accurate statistics on the disease, and for our transparency we get punished as the travel bans by many countries attest to. A disquieting development, however, is that we have fallen behind on the Sustainable Development Goals scorecard. However, as I've said, after the impressive progress on the Millennium Development Goals, the Afrobarometer Sustainable Development Goals scorecard of September 2021 showed that we have regressed in certain policy areas. It shows that South Africa has made progress on climate action, but we have lost ground on poverty, hunger, and perceived corruption in institutions. These citizens' assessments can be compared to official United Nations tracking indicators. The Afrobarometer SDG scorecard, which provides citizens' assessment of South Africa's progress over a recent 5-year period on important aspects of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, also reveal that the country is doing worse on access to healthcare, clean water, electricity, unemployment, economic inequalities, and trust in state institutions. The country has made progress on gender equality, increasing access to education, and reducing payment of bribes for public services. However, more needs to be done. Peace and stability. Equally important is the rule of law, improved levels of safety and security, and effective protection of economic infrastructure. For South Africa to succeed, we must deal decisively with those who are corrupt, those who break the law, those who make life dangerous for women and children, and those who damage the country's growth potential and infrastructure, which is tantamount to economic sabotage. A negative development in 2021 was the July unrest destabilization experience in many parts of our country. This represented an assault on the legitimate organs of state. The multiple failures of state security apparatus displayed are deeply concerning. This further undermines state authority and adds to the narrative of a failing state. We will have to ensure The South African Police Service enjoys the support of people and must improve its effectiveness in fighting crime, corruption, and other malfeasance, strengthen the Crime Intelligence Division, ensure that ANC branches strengthen effectiveness of CPFs, and we remain committed to strengthening the criminal justice system and improving safety and security of our citizens. The 2022 State of the Nation address by the President indicated that more police will be appointed, and there's a renewed emphasis on community policing forums. Fighting corruption. Corruption is a cancer that confronts us in the ANC and in our society. This must be removed, root and branch. There have, however, been many positive developments in the fight against corruption through the various structures and policies that counter it by way of investigations by the South African Police Service, the Hawks, the Special Investigation Unit, and prosecutions. The State Capture Commission has also highlighted the extent of corruption and steps to be taken to counter this scourge. There is a need to retain momentum and further strengthen anti-corruption measures to which the ANC is committed. As I conclude, the attainment of democracy in 1994 fundamentally shifted the strategic balance of forces in South Africa in favor of the forces of national liberation and social transformation. Indeed, a major concern on the current period pertains to weaknesses and even reversals, especially at municipal level and the capacity of the state general. Further, patriarchy still rears its ugly head, as evidenced by the unacceptable high levels of gender-based violence. All this is happening against the background of a contradictory global balance characterized by shifts in economic power and tendencies towards populism, authoritarianism, militarism, and now the emergence of a recalibrated Cold War. The conduct of leadership, especially in countries that exercise immense global power, can tip humanity towards a conflagration that must be avoided at all costs. It is our belief that a revitalized, ethical-oriented ANC as the largest political formation remains central to the continued good fortunes of our motherland. For this to remain true, it depends on our movement's capacity to self-correct and implement programs of organizational and societal renewal. I thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Comrade Jeff. Could we then open for a round or so of questions? Seeing that I am not a media practitioner, I think you know the rules of engagement better than I do. I think I'll put up hands, I'll recognize, and if you could just shortly state your name and your media house and your question. Starting from there. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Is there an order of precedence that I'm not aware of? Do we start with the Lord? Okay.
Mr. Radebe, it's Brian Sokutu from The Citizen. Given the weaknesses within the ANC that you have highlighted, how do you plan to close the gap between policy formulation as well as implementation? I'm saying this against the background of a perception of the ANC being good at coming up with progressive policies, but being thin on implementation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Pungan, you speak about, okay, let's start where you started, the international, politics, as it were. You know, one of the most confusing things, you say all the things that are happening across the world, but where you don't become pointed and direct is what is the ANC strategy and in terms of where it falls in all these things that are happening in the world. Basically, what is the current foreign policy of the ANC and in which direction is it moving? That's number one. Number two, there's this term that every ANC leader in every podium throws around, organizational renewal this. What is the content of this renewal in its practical terms, really? Because it's beginning to be one of the most bizarre and confusing terms that are thrown around by ANC leaders. Finally, okay, perhaps let me leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Has the Lord exercised his droit de seigneur?
Pungane, it's just a straightforward question. You are releasing policy documents. Where are the documents? We don't see documents here. We see a speech, a political overview speech, but no policy documents, especially when a country is faced with an economic crisis. We are not seeing your proposed economic transformation documents, which was leaked, particularly pertaining to government with the Central Energy Fund procuring SAPREF. So the question is, where are the policy documents that you are saying that your structures are going to be engaging with? Secondly, your document that you've just given us here speaks about the international balance of forces, and it goes back to the speech of your former president in the Mahikeng conference about organizational renewal, the same rhetoric that we've been hearing from ANC leaders for the past 2 decades. How can South Africans take you serious when you are even failing to correct yourselves in your own inward-looking statements? Thank you.
Okay.
Abongile Tumago, SABC News. Mshekazi, I've just gone through this, well, I don't know what to call it, same after what you've said. But there is some parts, as Zingisa over there highlighted, that are confusing, to say the least. But the question that I'm asking myself then, if us sitting here, we've got some of the things that we're not satisfied with, how much more to an ordinary ANC member on the ground? So what are sort of plans in place to make sure that this document does penetrate through to your structures on grassroots level? Because we come across abantu on the ground who are literally lost, who don't understand what's going on. So in terms of, the message here, abantu engos.
Thank you very much. Back to the front.
Dumola Moshauri from Newsroom Africa. Just a follow-up, I think, on some of the questions. When you say in your statement you'll take the discussions to organizational structures and branches from the week starting May 22, we know that COVID-19 has had a really negative impact in terms of the branches themselves. What is the status of the organizational structures, particularly the branches of the ANC? How many are operational? How many have had so-called vetted members in terms of memberships, where branches can account for how much in good standing their memberships are and paid up? Thank you.
Thank you. To the back.
Puleli Chuti Jones from ENCA. Maybe just from what my colleagues have said, in reference to the document which we're yet to see, we're talking about an economy that's limping. Does this policy document also speak about proposing greater private sector involvement in the economy, which, if that's the case, is a radical policy shift from the state-led growth approach, which was previously proposed by the ANC as well? And does this document also involve the issue of land as well? Is the ANC now saying that land must be expropriated, or it's saying that landowners can voluntarily just donate their land if they want to? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think as Comrade Jeff had indicated before, he's under a little bit of pressure. So maybe just to to make sure that everyone has posed a question, because I'm not sure whether there would necessarily be a second round. Anyone, any further takers? Right at the back.
Sorry. Tuma Kubule here. I'm flabbergasted. What are you going to do about the economy? And why? I've been to these presentations before, and you usually have the heads of each of the committees here, and you are in a hurry to leave. How does that work? Yeah. Nobody's here, yeah, to give us a proper presentation as to what these documents are. I can't see the documents. What is going on?
Okay. Thank you very much. I think just before handing to Comrade Jeff to reply to the questions, I think we had indicated at the beginning that today was going to be the launch of a special edition of Umkhabulo containing all of the documents. If they're not already on the website and circulated, they will be immediately after the media briefing. Starting next week, there will be a series of media engagements where the chairpersons and the drafters of the respective documents will be available to do more in-depth and amplified presentations and to have much, much more in-depth engagements on the respective documents. We thought that that would also be more appropriate, seeing that that members of the media would by then have had sight of the documents and would have had the opportunity to engage with them in greater depth than they would have had the document been put before you at this morning's briefing. I hope that clarifies that the documents are there and they are available. Comrade Jeff?
Maybe just to clarify, because there's been a lot of questions about where are these documents. We actually have the documents. I have it here on my phone. Special Umkhabulo edition. Already, because I'm the coordinator of them. So you will get them as soon as we finish this media conference. The documents are there. They were only finalized at the National Working Committee this past Monday. On closing the gap between policy and implementation, I think it's also related to the content of a renewal that was also asked. That I think those that are deployed in government, they need to do more to ensure that all the policy proposals, when they have been adopted by the National Conference in December of 2022, they leave no stone unturned in ensuring that the implementation is done. And that is also dependent on the caliber of those that are deployed, who must have the requisite skills and the competence in order to rise to the challenges that our country is facing. On renewal, it is very important that we should emphasize this, that we need to have a combination of competence and also to ensure that those that we deployed are qualified to do their jobs. If you recall, towards the local government elections in November 2021, we started a new process as the ANC to get to the qualifications of our candidates. It's not yet a perfect solution, but we are moving in the right direction. On the issue of our approach to international relations, we are guided by our policy of the Freedom Charter, of ensuring that we are part of the non-aligned movement, and we believe in the peaceful resolutions of conflicts wherever they are. So the International Relations Department, when they do give a presentation in the next week or so, they'll be giving you a more content on what is going to be happening as we speak. Where are the policy documents? I've already indicated that we're going to get them. We are not rhetorical about renewal. It is the reality now. Even though I've been speaking about renewal for a very long time, we should not tire in doing what is right. Branches. The Department of led by Comrade Senzo and Nomvula Mokonyane can give more accurate statistics as to how many branches we have in South Africa today, what is the status of members in good standing. I don't have those figures in my fingertips right now, but that information is available, as has been evidenced in various regional conferences and now provincial conferences of the ANC structures, so that we can ensure that we have members in good standing. On the issue of a greater private participation, that's not a new policy position of the ANC. Way back in 1992, when we adopted the Ready to Govern document, which was a blueprint of our economic approach of our members going to government in 1994, that the balance of evidence will indicate what will be the role of the state in the economy, the role of the private sector and other sectors of our society. So all those issues, including land, are contained in the economic transformation document, which Comrade Mamoloko will be presenting, I understand, next week. What to do about the economy? I think that is the burning issue. If we can't resolve the issue of the economy, our countries will be in dire strait. You'll recall that in our conference in Mangaung in 2012, we made our broad policy approach on the economy very clear, that since 1994, as the ANC NEC government, we've succeeded in consolidating all institutions of constitutional democracy. But insofar as the economy is concerned, we still lag behind, especially in the empowerment of the previously disadvantaged individuals. So going forward, we have now entered this new phase of our transition to ensure that the commanding heights of our economy must also represent the downtrodden people of our country. The series of reforms, economic reforms that our government is implementing is aimed precisely at achieving those goals. But all those are contained in these documents, which you are very much advised to study them, so that when the detailed presentations are done next week, we can have a robust discussion. So on that note, Comrade Chair, I think I have to make my leave. It's not that I'm leaving. The comrade who asked that question, I did explain in the beginning that I'm taking an international flight and I'm already late for the airport. The initial media conference was supposed to have taken place yesterday, but because of the confluence of many interactions and appointments, including the presidential Letsema and Mbizo, both in KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga, has made it that we should have this short media briefing today. But I can assure you that going forward, we'll have that. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, colleagues, thank you very, very much. I think that brings us to the conclusion of this briefing. We have just double-checked with our DIP team that the documents are on the ANC website. If you look under publications, Umkhabulo, there's the special edition. And then secondly, the link has also been sent on the ANC media WhatsApp group. So the documents are there available. With that, thank you very, very much. We really appreciate your early morning attendance, and we hope that this will lay the foundation for much more in-depth and robust discussions in next week. Thank you very, very much.